James Comer now demanding answers about Joe Biden's firing of Victor Shokin. He, of course, threatened to withhold $1 billion. And then the Ukrainians, they just said, all right, Joe, we'll take care of that prosecutor who's breathing down the neck of Burisma, which is where your son works. And so Comer sent a letter over to the Secretary of State. We know him, Antony Blinken, same guy who colluded with the CIA to create the fake letter of the so-called 51 intelligence experts who tried to spread literal disinformation to America about the truth of the laptop. So Blinken was working with the CIA back then. Questions for Blinken now that he's in charge of the Secretary of State position. What was the State Department doing with Ukraine? And why was Shokin fired? Because we're finding out now that people thought Shokin was doing a great job. He was just investigating the wrong corruption, Hunter's corruption, Burisma's corruption. And so before we get into the letter, this is a nice timeline, courtesy of the Oversight Committee, explaining what happened here. A brief refresher of the timeline of the events that led up to the firing of Victor Shokin, the Ukrainian prosecutor. Joe Biden was vice president at the time, in charge of being a liaison to Ukraine to go investigate Ukrainian corruption, blah, blah, blah. April 2014, Hunter Biden joined Burisma and was paid approximately $1 million per year, $83,333 a month. February 10th, about a year later, Victor Shokin is elevated to lead office of the prosecutor general. He's in Ukraine during an ongoing international investigation focused on corruption surrounding Burisma, the same company that Hunter joined in April. September, months later, the Interagency Policy Committee, a task force created to advise the Obama White House on whether Ukraine had cleaned up enough corruption to warrant more Western money. The Obama committee asserted that Shokin, the prosecutor, had made sufficient progress in combating corruption to warrant a third loan, another $1 billion. Shokin did great. We know this now on the record. Obama's own people, the Interagency Policy Committee, they investigated it, said Shokin's great. November 5th, 2015, Vice President Biden then participated in a call with the Ukraine president then, Poroshenko. And he said, and it provided no indication that the United States policy about Ukraine required the dismissal of Shokin. All right. So Biden hops on a phone call. Shokin doesn't come up at all. Late 2015, Burisma's corporate secretary named Vadim Pozarsky, he was pushing Hunter. He says, we need help. We're under investigation from Ukrainian prosecutors. We need help from the United States government. Pressure Zolchevsky. He says, we're facing pressure from the office of the prosecutor general. Victor Shokin's office is breathing down our necks. Hunter, please help. Hunter's on the board of Burisma. Similarly, the removal of prosecutor Shokin suddenly becomes a condition. Joe Biden's over there, and now he says, you got to fire Victor Shokin unless there's the $1 billion, if you want your $1 billion. If he's not fired, you don't get it. December 4th, 2015, Hunter then makes a phone call. He, quote, called DC. Devin Archer talked about this one. He calls DC. Hey, Dad, in a private meeting, he's there with Zolchevsky and Pozarsky in Dubai following Pozarsky's request. So the Burisma bros call Hunter. They say, meet me in Dubai. They tell him what's going on. Shokin's breathing down our neck. Can your dad help? He says, yes, let me call. March 2016 then, Shokin is dismissed from his position by the Ukrainian Rada after months of public pressure, most adamantly applied by Biden. And then in 2018, Joe Biden brags about it. He goes and talks at the Council of Foreign Relations, and he says, yeah, that's why I showed up. I said, you're not getting $1 billion unless Shokin is fired. And he said, I'll be God, I'll be damned. No, they did fire him. They did it because I threatened American aid because his son put pressure on him. That's the timeline. Now, they're asking the Secretary of State about this. James Comer wants to know what Antony Blinken knows about this. And here is what the letter says. It says, on September 12th, sent over to the Honorable so-called Antony Blinken. And this guy is one of the dirtiest people in government. I mean, he was colluding literally with the CIA to create the Hunter Biden cover-up laptop letter that went out before the election. Arguably, Blinken got to be the Secretary of State because he was such a good lieutenant for Joe Biden and the Democratic corrupt election. And so Congress is saying to him, hey, dear Antony, Secretary Blinken, Oversight Committee is here, and we're investigating Biden's connections to certain international and domestic business transactions and practices, including his family and his associates peddling influence to generate millions of dollars for the fam. The committee asks and seeks information from the State Department, which is you, to Blinken to provide context for certain foreign policy changes that occurred when Joe was vice president. Why did things change all of a sudden? Seems like things were good, particularly regarding Ukraine, while then VP Joe's son served on the board of a company that was being investigated for corruption. The committee requests information from the State Department regarding Joe's actions and his decisions from Ukraine. They say specifically, the committee seeks information about the State Department's perception of the Ukraine Office of the Prosecutor General, which was at the time headed by Victor Shokin. Their perception. What do you think of the guy? Prosecutor Shokin assumed his position February 10, 2015. He was elevated to lead the Office of the Prosecutor General, right? So this sounds like it's like their State Department. I'm sorry, their Department of Justice. He's sending the letter to the State Department. And he was promoted in the midst of an ongoing international investigation focused on corruption surrounding Burisma. Mykola Zlochevsky was also being investigated, the same guy Hunter met with. In March 2014, a French bank reported that Zlochevsky to UK authorities on suspicion of money laundering after his company tried to move $23 million to Cyprus from their British bank account. Okay, he's being suspected for money laundering. He freaks out in March 2014. April comes by. April 2014, Hunter joins the board. He's paid $1 million per year because he's freaked out. All right, the French, the British know, everybody knows I'm in trouble. I need some leverage. Hunter joins the team. So Congress says the committee seeks to understand the State Department's sudden change in a disposition toward Victor Shokin. What happened in late 2015? On June 11, 2015, the Assistant Secretary of State, look at this woman, we're familiar with her. Back then in 2015, she was just working her way up. She was then the Assistant Secretary of State for European and Eurasian Affairs, and they love their big titles, Victoria Nuland. Victoria Nuland, the same woman who accidentally revealed to Senator Rubio that there are biolabs in Ukraine or something like that. Are there biolabs? He's like, well, kind of. We have a sort of a program there. That's the same woman. She wrote that prosecutor Shokin, she actually sent a letter to him, to Shokin. She applauded his office's progress in anti-corruption efforts. You're doing a great job, Victor. Keep it up. In September 2015, then the U.S. ambassador to Ukraine, this guy, Jeffrey, he publicly stated about Shokin, he says, quote, "We want to work with prosecutor Shokin, so the Prosecutor General's office is leading the fight against corruption." Again, you're doing a great job. Also in September, the Interagency Policy Committee, the one that Obama created, asserted that Shokin had made significant progress in combating corruption such that he deserved the $1 billion. Yeah, you've earned it. Great job. So it's like 3 different things. Everybody says he does a great job. But on November 5th, Vice President Biden participated in a phone call, and on that phone call, he provided no indication that Shokin was a problem on November 5th. So we're getting closer. But something happened. By late 2015, the removal of Shokin somehow suddenly became a condition of the loan. Why? What changed between November 5th and late 2015? In March 16th, boom, Shokin was dismissed from his position after months of public pressure applied by Biden. The timing of these events is notable, says Congress. During the committee's transcribed interview with Devin Archer, a longtime Biden family associate, Archer explained that by late 2015, Pozarski, Burisma's corporate secretary, was increasingly pushing for Hunter to get help from Daddy to pressure Zlochevsky about the pressure Zlochevsky was facing from Shokin everywhere. Archer also testified that on December 4th, Hunter called D.C. in a private meeting with Zlochevsky and Pozarski in Dubai. Now, December 4th, that phone call is nestled in right near the end of 2015, okay? By late 2015, something happened. Now it became a condition. On November 5th, there was no problem there on the phone call. 1 month later, there was all of a sudden. Guess why? On December 5th, by late 2015, I don't know what date that was, it suddenly became a condition. Phone call happened on the 4th. Therefore, the committee is now investigating. Here's what they want. All documents and communications, Antony, including transcripts and notes made over the course of the phone calls between Vice President Biden and Ukrainian officials from 2014 to 2016. Biden and Ukraine. Give us the transcripts. All documents between State Department employees and Blue Star Strategies regarding Ukraine or Burisma. So who was talking to this LLC? Documents for all these people. John Kerry. Oh, I think his son's got something to do with all this too. Victoria Nuland, Amos Hochstein, Jeffrey Piat, Sherman Shannon, and a bunch of others. Burisma people, including Zlochevsky, Pozarski, Shokin, the Office of the Prosecutor General, Eric Sherwin, Biden crime family, Devin Archer from the same, and Hunter Biden. All the documents from the State Department. Victoria Nuland also makes that list, as she should. All documents and communications from the State Department and the Executive Office of the Presidency, same people listed there. All documents related to the $1 billion loan, and all documents going to or from the U.S. Embassy about the loan. We've got a lot of questions about this for you. We're looking forward to your answers. Signed by James Comer. He says, sincerely, your friend, James Comer. Send this document and these materials over to our Committee on Oversight and Accountability out of the House of Representatives. So that's Comer. Now, is Antony Blinken going to give him any of that? Good question. We know how this goes. It's a letter, it's another letter, and then it's often a threat for a subpoena, then it's a subpoena, and we'll see if this is something that they continue to investigate. But the timeline there is quite nice. Now, every time that Hunter's lawyers identify somebody who might be investigating them, they start harassing them. And one thing that they have to their advantage that a lot of other people don't have is that their daddy is running the Department of Justice. And so we know that even when the IRS whistleblowers were speaking out about this, Hunter's lawyers were trying everything they could to deviate them and to harass them, to stop them from speaking out. So Congress also sent a letter now, this time, to the Honorable Merrick Garland, U.S. Attorney General over at the Department of Justice. And they're saying, we've got questions about your Department of Justice and how you were interfacing with Hunter and how Hunter's lawyers were threatening your own prosecutors that work for your boss, which is Hunter's dad. It is coming from Jim Jordan, Jason Smith, and James Comer, the three gentlemen and the three committees that were just appointed to conduct the impeachment inquiry. And so here is what they say to Merrick Garland at the Department of Justice. They say, hey, Mayor, we've been investigating a bunch of stuff lately, and we've got some problems with your so-called commitment to impartial justice, specifically how you handled Hunter's investigation. They say Hunter's legal team currently is engaged in a brazen effort to intimidate and harass the brave IRS whistleblowers who exposed numerous irregularities in the DOJ investigation of Hunty. These tactics have even included urging the department to prosecute the whistleblowers for their protected disclosures to Congress. They say that they should be indicted for violating tax laws. How dare you talk about Hunter's business? That's a violation of the law. Federal law, says Congress, protects whistleblowers from retaliation, and efforts to intimidate these whistleblowers raise serious concerns about the obstruction of our investigation. So we request, Mayor, information about any attempts by Hunter's legal team to encourage your department that's run by Joe Biden to take action against the whistleblowers called Gary Shapley or Joseph Ziegler. We know that on June 30th, Abe Lowell, a lawyer representing Hunter Biden, wrote to Chairman Smith. He was basically threatening the House Ways and Means Committee, and we read through that here, asserting without evidence that Shapley and Ziegler had violated federal law by making disclosures to Congress. Lowell slandered the brave IRS whistleblowers. He called them disgruntled agents, rude, with an axe to grind. And he said, again without evidence, that these men were responsible for leaks to media outlets. Lowell implied that at least one of the whistleblowers, Shapley, faced some investigation into his own conduct. You got to go investigate the people who are making Hunter look bad. And guess what? Hunter's daddy runs the Department of Justice. So Hunter's son's lawyers are asking daddy or threatening daddy to go fix this for them. And Merrick, what are you doing about this? As reprehensible as it was for Mr. Lowell to smear these brave whistleblowers, Shapley and Ziegler, it appears from public reporting that Biden's legal team, perhaps including Mr. Lowell, even urged the department to investigate and prosecute them. New York Times had that story. They say Hunter's lawyers have contended that the DOJ, that by disclosing details about Hunter's crimes to Congress, they say that they broke the law and they should be prosecuted. They prosecute their opponents, and then when you commit crimes, the people who blow the whistle on your crimes, they should also be prosecuted along with your opponents. You see how this works? This is America. This is the president's son's lawyers. Additional information indicates that Hunter Biden's attorneys apparently sent a letter to the department asking in writing that it investigate Shapley for allegedly breaking the law, right? We'd like you to investigate Shapley because he's making the president's son look bad. And what did the DOJ do about it? Does anybody know? Maybe they did. Federal law protects IRS employees, allows them to blow the whistle. Shapley and Ziegler followed the appropriate process. They raised their genuine concerns, and they sat for transcribed interviews with Congress. And this is a problem problem for us. And so that we can investigate you and conduct our oversight, here's what we'd like to see. Any letters or communications from attorneys representing Hunter. We want to hear, what did Christopher Clark say? What did Abe Lowell say when they advocated to prosecute the whistleblowers? What was their letter? What did it include? We want all documents from lawyers representing Hunter and anything related to the prosecution of Shapley, any other lawyers, not just Clark and Abe. Same thing for Ziegler. We want this information by the end of September. And you remember that we are Congress. We've got Rule 10, which says we can do whatever the heck we want, any matter at any time, and we're doing that now. So give us the record. Sincerely, your friends in Congress, Jim Jordan, Jason Smith, and James Comer, all going over to the Honorable Merrick Garland, saying, Mayor, did you comply? Did you investigate Shapley? Did you think whether you could prosecute him or not? Did you open up a case on that? Let us know. We want more information about it. And Congress is also talking more about this. So this was a congressman who was outside in Congress explaining and responding to a question from the media, asked about why this is happening. Is this political? Do you have any actual evidence? Here's the response.
Yes, ma'am.
Can I just ask, what actual evidence do you have as opposed to allegations to show to the American public that would merit an actual impeachment inquiry of Joe Biden and prove that today isn't just about some of you?
Oh, I don't know.
McCarthy for the sake of enacting political revenge.
This isn't about political revenge. We have the bank accounts. We can see, ma'am, you can see that the homes that the Bidens own can't be afforded on a congressional or Senate salary. You also understand that it's not normal for family members to receive millions of dollars from overseas interests. Those things aren't normal. That's not normal to have 20 shell companies. These things are not normal, and it alludes to not only just widespread corruption, but money laundering, if not influence peddling itself. And we also have the president, the vice president at the time, on record saying that the prosecutor was fired. Well, son of a bitch, the prosecutor was fired, right? Because the prosecutor was going after the company that his son was working on. That's what we have. If you can't see that, if you are that blunt, look, I'll turn it over to the attorneys.
People can't see that. They think it's political revenge.
It's because you don't report on it.
We're here reporting on it today.
I'm not sure how you know what the American people think.
You can see there is plenty of evidence, but this is going to be their new talking point. You know, it's just like follow the science, or insurrection, or no court of law found evidence of widespread fraud that would turn over the election, right? All of these things is just a new talking point. Now it's just no evidence, over and over and over. Trust the science, no evidence, no, unprovoked war, unprovoked invasion, unprovoked, right? All blah, blah, blah. So get used to hearing that time and again. Now we'll see if Congress gets some answers on any of this stuff. I certainly hope they do. Answers about Victor Shokin, answers about the corruption and the obstruction in the DOJ. We'll continue to cover. Thank you for subscribing, my friends, and liking this video wherever it is you're watching this.